y'all, it's Jessica from Sloppy Swatches. Today I have a look at the Autumn Sparkle 2017 collection that is available right now from Shinespark Polishes. These were sent to me for review, and I'll be swatching the minis today, which retail at just $20. So I'll go ahead and link her storefront and social media down below and get right into it. So first up is Early Harvest, and this is described as a green to gold duotone hollow. It's going to pull a little bit more green on cool tone skin and more gold on warm tone. So I did find that to be pretty true. I do have very warm tone skin, and I did get more of those gold tones. So here's a quick look at that brush shot, and then I'll show you how Early Harvest swatched on my natural nail. So here's a look at that first easy coat. I did find that this polish was a fairly sheer. So here at this first coat, I did go in maybe a little bit thicker, and it did definitely help with that opacity a little bit, but I think this is for sure one that could double as a topper. So here's a quick look at that second coat. Again, I did go in a little bit thicker, and it does definitely add to that duochrome effect, especially at harsh angles, but it was just a little bit sheer for my taste. So I'm going to go ahead and let that dry and then show you how it built up for me with this third and final coat. This third coat does pull it right to the edge of being completely opaque. And this is my final swatch photo at an angle underneath my artificial lighting with a glossy top coat. So next up is Autumn Twilight, and this is one of my top picks of the collection. This polish is described as a gorgeous pink to gold hollow polish with strong linear hollow. On warmer tones, it's going to look maybe a little bit more rose gold, and then on cool tones, it's going to look a little bit more pink. So here's a quick look at that brush shot, and then I'll show you how Autumn Twilight swatched on my natural nail. So here's a look at that first coat. This is another one that works up a pretty sheer on this first coat. It'd be awesome to use as a topper as well if you'd prefer. I'm going to go ahead and let that dry and then show you how it built up for me with that second coat. So here's a look at my second coat. I did go in pretty heavy-handed here with this second coat, and it for sure adds a more of that shimmer and more of that hollow, but it is still a little bit sheer. So I'm going to go ahead and let that dry and then show you how it built up for me with that third and final coat. So again, I did go in for a thicker third coat, and it did bring this one right to the edge of being completely opaque. I did still have some visible nail line, especially at angles. So next up is Copper Kettle, and this polish is described as a beautiful coppery burnt orange with strong linear hollow. In terms of opacity, this is one of the stronger polishes in the collection, so I'll go ahead and show you a quick look at that brush shot, and then I'll show you how Copper Kettle swatched on my natural nail. So here's a look at that first coat. This one does go on a nice and smooth and really opaque. It has a nice amount of coverage. It's not completely opaque. I do still have a little bit of visible nail line. So I'm going to go ahead and let that dry and then show you how it built up for me with that second coat. So here's a look at my second and final coat, and it does bring this polish completely opaque. I'm loving all the deep brown tones in here as well as reds in this really pretty mix. So here's a quick look at that final angle shot underneath my artificial lighting. So next up is Fall Equinox, and this polish is described as a duotone that shifts from a gorgeous sea green teal to a gold. So on cooler tone skin, it's going to look a little bit more teal, and then on warmer tones, it's going to appear a little bit more green. So here's a quick look at that brush shot, and then I'll show you how Fall Equinox swatched on my natural nail. So here's a look at that first easy coat. This one does have a really strong gold duochrome or shimmer effect running throughout. This first coat does go on nice and smooth, just a little bit sheer, so I'll go ahead and let that dry and then show you how it built up for me with that second coat. So again, I did go in for a little bit of a thicker second coat here, but it really definitely amps up that coverage and opacity. If you're comfortable going with thicker coats, I think that definitely works for this collection. So here's a look at that completed mani. Add 2 coats before glossy top coat underneath artificial lighting. So next up is Autumn Morning, and this polish is described as a gorgeous crisp sapphire blue, the perfect hue of a pre-dawn autumn morning. It does also have a nice amount of scatter holographic running throughout as well as shimmer. I'll go ahead and show you a quick look at that brush shot, and then I'll show you how Autumn Morning swatched on my natural nail. So here's a look at that first coat. This one is a fairly sheer as well. I could also see it being a topper if you'd like, especially over your favorite vivid blue. I am going to go ahead and let that dry and then show you how it built up for me with that second coat. So again, with a little bit of a thicker second coat, this polish is right on the edge of being completely opaque. If you prefer to go in thin, I think that this is for sure going to need 3. So here's a look at my completed mani at 2 coats before a glossy top coat underneath artificial lighting. So next up is a Deep Slumber, and this is kind of like the night winter sky when it's very clear. It does have a good amount of linear holographic polish running throughout, as well as maybe a little bit of flakies, maybe a little bit of shimmer. So here's a quick look at that brush shot, and then I'll show you how Deep Slumber swatched on my natural nail. So again, this first coat does start out fairly sheer. If you wanted to use this as a topper, you totally could. I'm going to go ahead and complete this coat, let it dry, and then show you how it builds up for me with that second coat. So here's a look at that second coat. Again, I did go in maybe a little bit thicker with this one, and it's so close to being completely opaque in two. I think if you prefer to go in thin, this is another one that's definitely going to need that third coat. So here's a look at my completed mani at just 2 coats underneath artificial lighting. So that does wrap up my swatch and review of the Autumn Sparkle 2017 collection. Again, these are available right now from Shinespark Polish for really affordable prices. If you're just getting into indies, or maybe you prefer something a little bit more affordable when you're trying out a new brand, their minis are a pretty cool option. So if you're interested in seeing any photos of any of the polishes featured here, I do have those available on my blog at sloppyswatches.com, or you can also follow me on Instagram at sloppyswatches. So thanks so much for watching, guys. See you next time.